What's up? Another Union of the Unwanted episode. Today we have a very special episode and another special guest. We've been very lucky to have some really amazing guests on every episode. And today we have Roger Stone with us today, which the timing could not be better because there's a lot going on. I see one thing I want to kind of start off with asking you is that I think we've had these discussions on this episode a lot. A lot of people into alternative media, because if you're not familiar with these type of episodes, what we basically created is a conference call for people into alternative media, people who've been suppressed, people who've been, I mean, that's where the Union of the Unwanted came from. I try to gather people who've been unwanted by big tech, by mainstream media, and
enemies of the state, my
yeah,
fellow enemies of the state.
yeah,
It's
basically.
it's an absurdity. We've never seen this level of censorship, this level of muzzling alternative opinion. It is unprecedented. They put up a virtual iron wall between the corporately owned media and their allies in Silicon Valley, in which they believe some ultra truth. There is no evidence of voter fraud. That's absurd. None whatsoever, which is an absurd claim given not only the mountain of both interesting, substantial, and compelling, I would say almost overwhelming evidence of voter fraud. Additionally, there appears to be the cyber manipulation of the vote. I get a lot of questions about that, but I know Sidney Powell to be an attorney who takes her responsibilities very seriously, and the assertions she's made about the action she intends to file or seem chilling. I'm not an attorney, so I can't speak to that question. But this censorship, or I should better put it a better way, this control of mass communication gives the combine, call them whoever you want, the deep state, the military industrial complex, the political establishment, if we know what we're talking about, the permanent neocon class that has infected both political parties. This is an unprecedented, even for them, level of censorship. You can't even disagree. If you speak about some of these issues, you're branded a conspiracy theorist, when they're the ones who, for 3 years, told us there was absolute evidence that Donald Trump was in bed with the Russians, except for there wasn't any. So it's kind of interesting as to where we are.
Well, I see a lot of similarities
up there.
I see a lot of similarities with the COVID thing. I've had Mickey Willis on my show, and a lot of people, Dr. Scott Jensen, a lot of these people who've been suppressed. So the mainstream media is telling you that, like, hey, all the mainstream doctors agree on this, and yet, like, all the people who don't agree, who actually have evidence that goes against the mainstream narrative, they're being suppressed. And it's a similar thing now, where you're seeing the mainstream media tell you that, like, oh, you're accusing people of voter fraud and there's no evidence, but anybody who does have evidence, like Ben Swan or anybody else who's actually been reporting on this stuff, has been suppressed, right?
Yes. No, it is exactly that. So we are, at this point, we're in a process in which I think there was, in fact, 2 levels of voter fraud. There was the old-fashioned Democratic machine style fraud that came in many forms: corruption of mail-in ballots, corruption of absentee ballots, fake ballots, fabricated ballots, people voting more than once, dead people voting, Civil War veterans, particularly good record of participation in this most recent election. There's a mountain of evidence there. Whether those issues provide a sufficient cause of action to overturn an election in the courts is a question I can't answer because I'm not an attorney. It is certainly should be grounds as far as I can see. And then it does appear to me like you have the cyber manipulation of the vote, which is an issue that deserves to be aired. But those who talk about it are immediately branded as conspiracy theorists, and they're deplatformed. But look, I was a pioneer. They blew me off Twitter at 550,000 followers well over 3 years ago. And I think I hurt Jake Tapper's feelings or something. It was something really innocuous that they went crazy over. But It is where we are. Now I'm going to shut up and let other people speak.
Yeah. Does anybody have a question for Roger?
Yeah, I do. There's a question about the tabulation of the votes and everything, and people are saying, well, if we calculate it correctly, it might swing some votes one way or the other, and that there, if there was evidence of voter fraud, we have to look into that. But if there's evidence of voter fraud, doesn't the candidate just become null and void? Isn't it just automatically Biden is removed in the?
No, absolutely
No?
not. You have to have a finding by some court or some legislative body. Basically, until the Electoral College votes, Joe Biden would not legally be president. Electors are allowed, they're not legally pledged, even though most of them, probably all of them, who would be counted at this point, we argue fraudulently for Biden, would probably vote for him. But he's, I think if he's really over by 290 as opposed to something in the 300s, he's going to be very close. Whether you can invalidate any of these state elections in the state courts with an eye towards getting to the Supreme Court, which would be your ultimate goal, whether the Supreme Court would be loath to hear it. The courts traditionally don't like to get involved in political contests. Those are a lot of questions, but there is certainly overwhelming evidence at this point, and the effort to just erase anyone who says otherwise is extraordinary. But you have to do something with that evidence, and it's up to the president's lawyers to bring a suitable lawsuit.
So why is the focus then on voter fraud, which historically only turns up an insignificant or negligible number of cases, rather than voting machines, rather than genuine election fraud?
I actually think it is. In other words, what I have seen is that in the states, Republican lawyers, most of whom live in the state, some of whom are volunteers, some of whom who are on the RNC clock, but who understood their state election law, felt that in most cases there were numerous potential causes of action. In other words, different acts of voter fraud. But they seem to be, I don't know whether they will choose the right one, whether I think that they are being subtly discouraged by some in the Republican establishment to kind of let this go. That pressure is very definitely there. It is, but you have to examine both, because ultimately the question would be, if there was cyber manipulation of the vote, and if there was old-fashioned voter fraud, mail-in, absentee, so on, did they combine switch the votes to swing the presidency, or did one swing the presidency or the other? I think the answer is that they didn't get enough votes the old-fashioned way. But that would be speculation on my part. I do have a high regard for Sidney Powell, based on the way she fought General Flynn's way out of the corner, and a great admiration for her. And she's not a lady who speaks lightly. I mean, she doesn't make threats that she can't back up from a substantive point of view. So I'm going to be very interested in see what her strategy is going forward.
Mr. Stone, I had a question in regards to fraction magic of the voting machines, when researchers like Bev Harris of Hacking Democracy, who's a liberal, actually would come out 4 years ago before the last election and was exposing fraction magic, where they can take, like your vote and have 52% of it go one way and 1% maybe go to libertarians and 47% go to the other candidate, where it's done at the machine level. How aware, I know you don't speak for the administration, but how aware is the Trump administration of that? And did they set any traps potentially to try to catch something like this? And what could be done about that?
No, because I think to set a trap, you would have to anticipate it. It is pretty clear to me that the president's campaign never anticipated this moment. Look, I give the president enormous credit, because I think that we've basically been subjected to a psyop, which not only the constant repetition of polls that turn out to be not even close, the slanted coverage of the president, the censorship and limitation of any discussion of his son's business activities, which certainly look bad to me. All of that, I think, the president, we were told repeatedly in the PSYOP, between his handling of COVID-19 and the flight of suburban women, the president's goose is cooked. And I think only kind of despite his campaign, but through a superhuman personal effort to barnstorm in the key markets and hit the key arguments for his reelection, did he fight his way back to, I believe, win a majority of those legal votes cast. There's no anecdotal backup for the idea that Joe Biden was outpolling Barack Obama. There's no evidence of any intensity. There's no evidence of any enthusiasm. The whole thing really does not smell good. And they're limiting access to him because of their concern about his mouth. And they are basically doing an excellent job of trying to act like he is the president-elect when technically that's not true. The states haven't certified. You still have state legislatures to go through in some cases where the legislature can make an independent judgment. They have to certify the electors to the Electoral College. It's a whole new battleground. I don't see the president ever throwing in the towel as long as he realistically knows that he was defrauded in this election, which he was.
I got a question for you, Roger. Here in Canada, we have our great leader, Justin Trudeau. And actually what I heard from one of Justin Trudeau's best friend a couple of years ago was that the Obama campaign was brought over to Canada to elect and help elect Justin Trudeau. Now, what suddenly happened right away was that, President-elect was, congratulated by Justin Trudeau right away. And I wonder if you're aware of that huge connection between the Liberals in Canada and the Democrats.
I am, and it's not surprising. You notice that a number of people who are supposed to be influencers immediately rubber stamped the Biden presidency. George W. Bush, who endorsed Hillary Clinton, and therefore that should be discounted. Mitt Romney, the epic Benedict Arnold of our time. People need to understand that when Mitt Romney is on with, I guess it was Chris Wallace, criticizing the president's character, Mitt Romney is a man who believes in nothing. He ran for the U.S. Senate to the left of Ted Kennedy on all social issues. He is not a conservative. He had trouble saying it. He said he was severely conservative, which no conservative would ever describe themselves in that way. But he wanted to run for the Senate in a state that he did not live in, but he had family connections to. The Republican state treasurer, a fine man, a Trump supporter, wanted to run for the Senate, had been preparing to do so for several years. Romney prevailed on the president to lean on the treasurer to get out of the race so that Romney would be unopposed. Then Romney asked for the president's endorsement, which the president gave him. And what has he gotten in return? Nothing but the shiv in the back. Now, interestingly, George Romney, his father, did the exact same thing to Barry Goldwater. Sent him a vile 12-page letter and released it to the press, falsely accusing Goldwater of racism. But these people, before he ran for governor as a Republican, Mitt Romney's a registered independent. He supported Paul Tsongas against Ronald Reagan in 1980. So don't lecture us about what's conservative. It's laughable.
I have some questions for you, Roger.
Sure.
We met at American Priority Conference. I took a picture with you and took a stone and I posted it on Instagram, and I lost a couple of friends. They're like, I know you're going through a lot, but what the fuck is wrong with you? Are you okay? Because I posted a picture with you.
You're obviously a woman of great taste and discernment.
I am.
You've got great lips. Continue.
Thank you. They're not silicone. My question, can you comment on the rumor regarding the watermarks and the comment that Steve Picciott made? And I called the Department of Homeland Security, and they told me to call per state. Now it's a supposedly sting operation, but there's no universality even in a state between counties. And two, can you comment on the executive order that President Trump put forth in 2018 about foreign interference?
Yes, let's take them one by one. Tell me. Let's take the second one first. I do think that that there was cyber manipulation of our election. I do think that there were votes manipulated. I do think we're going to find substantial evidence. If that was done from offshore, which I believe it was, if our data bounced around from Germany to Italy to took a brief tour of Europe before it came back to us, after which it was homogenized, I think that is that's a legitimate issue. Your first question, tell me again.
You're muted.
Sorry, the first, and also, by the way, Dominion is based out of Canada, so that is also considered foreign.
So I guess to go to the well, go ahead. Yes, I'm sorry.
The first comment is about Steve Picciot's comment.
I don't see how this is logistically possible, given the disconnect of the states. There is no one central federal ballot. It's a great story, but I do not think it's accurate. I'm not criticizing Steve Picciott. He's generally been pretty accurate, but I just don't know how you would pull that off. I don't see the logistics of it. Whereas there's no question that the technology that was used in the Hammer program under the scorecard subset, which enters the computer line of custody when the counties send the results to the state. That's the entry point at which the data is taken and I believe corrupted. That's a legitimate argument as well. And there's evidence there. I'm not privy to what Sidney Powell and Mayor Giuliani have in mind as their legal strategy, but knowing Sidney Powell and the mayor well, I think it will be compelling.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to talk to you, Roger, about it's having these conference calls of the alternative media. One thing that we've discussed a lot throughout these months, I mean, we started about like 6 months ago, 5 months ago, doing this every other week, is that throughout this whole journey of the Trump administration, there's a lot of us that feel like, hey, he's not a part of the administration. He's an outsider. And then there's times where things happen and you're like, wait, maybe we're being tricked. And, you know, obviously when you follow politics as closely as many of us on these calls, you see it happen over and over again. I mean, they're great liars, they're good. But I almost feel like what happened after the election, the fact that even his own party, the Republican Party, didn't seem to have his back. Fox News didn't seem to have his back, almost highlighted the fact that maybe he was an outsider after all.
I think he's the ultimate outsider. And to that extent, he had no experience in American politics. I think what's actually amazing is with the implacable opposition, really, of the leadership of both parties and 1,000 obstacles, big and small, put in his way, how much he was actually able to accomplish in 4 years. I mean, you had the greatest economy in our history. You had the highest level of job growth. You had the highest level of wage growth. You had the highest levels of employment among all people. You had billions coming back into the country for reinvestment here. You had better trade deals that were benefiting us for the first time. You had the ongoing effort to seal the border, where he never really stopped fighting and continues to fight. It's amazing that he got as much done as he did, because they're just every day they're trying to get you drawn deeper into the swamp, and they pratter on and on about the rule of law. But where was the rule of law when Barack Obama and Joe Biden decided to use the full authority of the United States government to surveil a presidential candidate of the other party without any evidence beyond the Steele dossier, which they know is a phony, but they use it. They both. FBI Director Comey assures us that there's a rich mosaic of evidence of Russian collusion, but in the end, there's only the Steele dossier. So they spend all this time telling us that this is absurd, but the facts, I think, are really clear at this point as to what transpired. The president was subjected to a partisan witch hunt predicated on fabricated information that they filed with the FISA court, violating the law. It's really quite extraordinary, the extent to which they wanted to get rid of him. Generally speaking, when you have an outsider, when they cannot defeat you, which is what they try to do first, they then seek to co-opt you. That means get people into the administration who will water down or dilute or otherwise slow the president's program down. That is unfortunately a great tradition. But it's still amazing how much he has gotten done given this level of opposition.
Yeah, well, there's things like, one topic I'm very passionate about is vaccines. I've had a lot of people about that topic on, Del Bigtree and Dr. Brian Hooker and all this stuff. And he honestly, it's one of those topics that I mean, Trump actually questioned it during a debate when he ran the first time. He brought it up publicly. He talked to Robert Kennedy Jr. Initially and all this stuff. And to me, it's one of the most important topics because it's a perfect example of censorship. It's a perfect example of government getting into your personal lives, and you're seeing it now where it's like and this is why this election I almost felt like was a one topic or one issue election, because I looked at everybody. It didn't matter if you're a liberal, conservative, or libertarian, anarcho-libertarian, socialist. I'm like, does anybody like the way things are right now? If nobody likes the way things are right now, then unfortunately, if you vote for Joe Biden, things might just get worse, and it just, to me, it's been very frustrating every week doing these shows. And you see, you talk to people from all over the world, all over the country, and everybody is just upset because it's one of those things where, I've said this on the show before, when you're talking about foreign policy, like, and some people can lose interest in that because they get to go to dinner, they get to go on with their lives. It doesn't affect them that much if we're in Syria or not. It affects some people, but the average American, it doesn't. But these issues are affecting everybody. And it's seeping into, there's just a story recently about giving 11-year-olds consent in DC, a bill that they're trying to pass where they can get a vaccine in school without the parents knowing. It's insanity. And
there's no question about it. And I think Big Pharma is no lover of this president because of his drive for lower drug prices. So they were out to mug him. There's no question about that. I'm anti-vaccination. I'm not a scientist or a doctor. It seems to me to be not the vaccination itself, but what's in it that is this potentially dangerous. But I'm against any mandatory policy, and I'm very skeptical of this rush to a vaccination for COVID-19, which would be the first vaccination that actually changes your DNA in ways that I think are dangerous. Who I really admire enormously is Robert Kennedy Jr. Because he comes from an establishment family. He's a person, I think, of enormous integrity. He's an environmentalist. He has stepped forward and taken this fight on. He's been denounced by members of his own family, but that's too bad because he's right. And he's been very, very courageous about it. I admire his leadership. I liked, his father was a man of great courage as well. Staunch anti-communist, worked for Joe McCarthy, actually. Part of the Robert F. Kennedy Sr. narrative they don't tell you. But one of the Kennedy sisters dated Joe McCarthy. Joe McCarthy was in the bridal party when Bobby Kennedy married Ethel. Robert Kennedy was the only Senate Democrat to attend Joe McCarthy's funeral. Very interesting.
Since we've got Roger Stone here and he just mentioned the vaccines, I was wondering what your take is on Andrew Cuomo in New York, now that the New York State Bar Association has said it will be mandatory in New York to take this COVID-19 84 vaccine, especially because the media pre-election and post-election almost made Cuomo Trump's foil and not Biden. So what are your thoughts on that, Roger?
I agree with that analysis. I think the governor is a real liability in his own actions. I was at the bookstore the other day, and I see that Andrew Cuomo has written a book on leadership, which is extraordinary, given what we know about the assignment of people who were infected or people who could be affected to nursing homes. This looks like a mass murder to me, a mishandling of the situation. The governor sought to blame everybody else or gloss over it, praising his own leadership. I don't think that's an accurate depiction of what has transpired, but the mainstream media narrative required the Trump is fumbling the COVID-19 response which I think is creating. At the end of the day, despite Joe Biden's huffing and puffing, virtually everything he's proposing in his new task force has already been done, except the annihilation of our economy and our social fabric, which they would also like, and I think is a mistake at this juncture.
Yeah, it seems like in order for Donald Trump to actually win in terms of now that we're in this stage of the fight right now, and it seems like what he would have to do is obviously get the will of the people, and not just necessarily his base, but also some people outside of his base. And being a libertarian, I was a hardcore Trump supporter in 2016, sort of embarrassed to say a little bit. I was a Ron Paul libertarian guy, then voted for Gary Johnson, and then went pushed for the president in 2016, had a Donald Trump, bought a signed hat before the election. I listened to every single one of your shows in 2016 on Alex Jones, listened to Alex Jones every day for like 5 or 6 years. Right. I stopped after the election though, because it became nothing about Trump. It became everything about Trump afterwards. But anyways, he didn't win my vote this time because I saw that there's so many areas in terms of my big thing is economics. And I saw that he had Gary Cohn on as his first economic advisor. And then, I don't need to get too much into that. He had Jerome Powell. And the day he picked Jerome Powell, I knew that for me, my main issue was the Federal Reserve, and then seeing a swamp monster like him. Anyways, not to tie up the whole big thing with all these great people on, but I think what I'm just wondering if he could throw us like a bone, and maybe one way to help galvanize us would be get freeing like Ross Ulbricht or having like Julian Assange, getting a pardon for him. Because if he really wants to energize this base of all these people who want to be able to support him. I just want to see if he can throw us a bone. And actually, the day after you were hit with the ricin attack, you were supposed to be on Ernest Hancock's show. And unfortunately, obviously you had the no-show because you were in the hospital. And I filled in for you that day to talk about Teneo. And I actually made like a 1-minute thank you because I thought that you and actually at the time, Drudge, obviously now he's not a fan of the president, but I thought that you, Alex Jones, and Drudge were probably on the Mount Rushmore of people that were MVPs of the election. And I never got to give you that 1-minute thank you. But if Trump wants to help out some of the people to help get him there, but part of that thank you was I was inspired that other people like me who created a page out of nowhere and was reached like 1 million people right before the election. I created a page right before the election, reached over 1 million people. And then boom, right after the election, I got shadow banned, 99% reached, kicked off of YouTube. And the fact the president's done nothing.
Believe me, I get it. But I think the problem here is that as a libertarian, as a believer in the free market, you got to finish the story. Yes, Trump did have Gary Cohn, a Wall Street guy, a globalist, somebody who doesn't understand growth economics, but he was dismissed. And the president, I think, brought in the most dynamic member of the Trump team, Larry Kudlow, who does have libertarian instincts. And they're the ones who unleashed this mountain of tax cuts and regulatory cuts, which as anti-government conservatives, libertarian conservatives, I think that is an extraordinary thing. Now, along comes COVID. Trump is not a scientist. He's not a doctor. The doctors around him, who are all establishment corrupted, basically given these draconian projections of how many will die if he doesn't shut the economy down. He errs on the side of caution because he doesn't know. Thank God their projections are wrong, but you can see why he wouldn't want to rely on them a second time to shut down the economy, which is, I think, interesting in itself.
Yeah, well, as part of that story, I was on Facebook in 2004, and the very first show that I said that I liked was Larry Kudlow because I was watching him at 14 years old. And the problem with Larry Kudlow is as soon as he becomes a company guy and he switches a lot of his stances just to become pro-Trump, and he actually backed away from a lot of things. And then also, Trump, there was 16 times during the election or even more during the run-up in 2016 where he said the economic numbers are fake, and he was talking about the jobs numbers and said these job numbers are the most fake, phony numbers that have ever been existed just to make presidents, politicians, and economists look good. And so the fact that he was speaking my language and then flipped it, yeah, if you're using the same rigged numbers, he did make the rigged numbers look good, except then he flipped the script. And so that, for someone that actually knows the numbers, I was doing presentations on this before COVID hit, so I don't blame him for the COVID stuff. And it's not that, it's just that even a guy like Larry Kudlow completely changes his tune, because once, he was a big critic of the president, and then he gets in there, and then all of a sudden now he starts, basically carrying the bags, for Trump on certain things.
But he has been the spark plug. He's been the apostle of the pro-growth policies that have really made the whole nucleus of the success of Trump's presidency. I think is attributable to the president's chosen jockey, who is not the Wall Street corporatist that you mentioned earlier, because that was a horrific appointment. It's hard to understand. I kind of like your story because it's similar to mine. The last vote I cast in a Republican statewide primary for president was for Ron Paul. Then when the Republican Party nominated Mitt Romney, I knew what he really was. I just couldn't stomach it. So I supported Governor Gary Johnson. It's hard to leave the Republican Party. It's the traditional home of Goldwater, Reagan, Nixon. I mean, I have a sentimental feeling for the party. I was a young Republican national chairman. I went to become a libertarian, probably would have stayed there until Donald Trump staged the, essentially a hostile takeover of the Republican Party, making my return, possible. So I think the party's changed forever. In other words, this is not about really whether the president survives or whether he gets another term. He has started a revolution that is not going to go away. So now they have to censor that revolution because it's reform is dangerous to the system. They like the status quo.
Roger, can I ask you then, if you really think it's going to change, for instance, what are your thoughts on somebody like John Bolton, who you've spoken favorably about in the past, basically telling him to throw in the towel, concede. And I would argue his base, Trump's base, was never in favor of a Bolton appointment. What are your thoughts on it?
Having known Bolton personally, I now recognize that I had misjudged him. First of all, I know him to be very able. What I never understood was whether he was just an able executor of a plan, or whether he was, able to do this in a way that worked. I have lost faith based on additional evidence that he is able to do so. So yes, I did speak, I guess, hopefully of him at one point, but it has not borne fruit in terms of my expectations.
Roger, I know you have a hard out in about 5 or 10 minutes. We started off the panel here talking about censorship and talking about the crackdown on free speech. You kind of obfuscated to the FBI the nature of your relationship with Julian Assange and WikiLeaks.
No, I never spoke to the FBI, so.
Or the Flynn investigation. I read the transcript.
I never spoke to the Flynn investigation.
But whatever you were testifying on, where the transcripts got leaked, and we all got to read them, and it was fantastic reading. Isn't it more important now than at any other point that we collectively stand up for Julian Assange and for WikiLeaks? Because the precedent that it would set going forward is that any journalist or publisher, no matter where they are, no matter where they live, who receives classified information or goes to protect a source or publishes classified information can be extradited to the U.S., thrown in a black hole for 175 years for printing vital information to the public.
So yes, let me address that. First of all, I'm not surprised you didn't see this, but at midnight on election day, midnight, the busiest media day of the year, the Department of Justice released the last previously redacted sections of the Mueller report regarding Roger Stone, which proves that they had no evidence whatsoever that I conspired with Julian Assange.
Right.
Had any special knowledge. I think, and I've gone on the record to say, Assange is a journalist. The claim that he's a Russian asset, I just don't believe we've ever seen proof of that. It's just an assertion of John Brennan and the deep state. I think, interestingly, nothing Assange has ever published has been challenged in terms of its authenticity or its accuracy, which you can't say for the New York Times. They can't prosecute him, I think, under the New York Times versus United States case for the publication of classified information, but that's his real infraction. So they go and construct these charges against him in which he's accused of hacking. But when you look at their case, it's not clear that he hacked anybody. It is a great travesty. On the other hand, you have Mike Pompeo saying that he is a state actor, which I don't believe to be the case. He played inadvertently, I think, a significant role in the uprising that elected Trump. So yes, I have written several op-eds on this. I think the president should pardon him. I wish that he would.
Hello, everyone. I just want to make a few remarks before I have to head out. I'm Chris Matthew from Forbidden Knowledge News. First of all, thank you, Ricky, so much for having me on this amazing panel. Thank you, Charlie, for inviting me on as well. Now, I want to start by saying I am definitely not a politics guy for various reasons. I believe in a way, or I used to, that it's all a show anyway. I think that the entire left-right division paradigm is all a part of a larger divide and conquer agenda. But I will say Donald Trump displayed some anomalies that I've never seen before when it came to his time in office. You know, like calling out the fake news, the insane tweets, the fact that the entire mainstream media absolutely hated him and used everything they could to try and turn everyone against him. Even tried to impeach him. That's very interesting to me. I couldn't tell you with certainty trying to fight the cabal or the elite, or whatever you want to call them, or if it was all part of a larger show. If you look at 2020, it's like the plot of the worst movie ever, really. Yeah, Trump has filed lawsuits. There's evidence of voter fraud. There's even the mainstream media mentioning this. The question is, will they have enough evidence, and what will the media and the left do in response? I was never really on board this whole QAnon train. I don't trust the orange man, but if he can actually pull this off and prove that there was 100% fraudulent activity, it'd be insane. The media and the left would completely lose their shit, and it'd be hilarious. But of course, you'd have also widespread protests that, could turn violent, which they usually do. But if this happens, I would seriously have to reconsider my thoughts on Trump and his intentions. But on the other hand, if he doesn't pull it off, creepy Uncle hair sniffing Joe Biden will become president. And I guarantee that there won't be one decision or idea that comes out of his senile brain. He's going to read his lines, follow his orders. And in my opinion, with a Biden presidency, we're going to witness mask mandates, vaccine mandates, extreme restrictions if you opt out, possible economic crash, definitely more censorship,
Yes.
Possibly to the point of eliminating free speech,
Yes.
a big tech corporate takeover completely with extreme surveillance. And you can probably forget about small businesses surviving if they continue with this whole Corona op. We're going to probably see a ramping up of the Internet of Things where we can just social distance forever and do everything online. So right now our future it's pretty uncertain to say the least. But what I do know is the most amazing thing happened as a result of this elaborate psychological warfare op. People started to wake up. And they started to smell the fuckery, excuse my language, but so many people are now questioning the official narrative and realizing that they've been lied to their entire lives. It's my hope that, shows like this, people like us, can not only get enough people to wake up and realize what's happening, but actually take action and doing something. Getting this information out is one thing, but actually taking action and going is going to take as many people, as many like-minded people as possible.
We lost Roger. He was leaving he had a hard stop. It would have been nice to just have him say goodbye. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, that's okay. I'm just going to finish up by saying the few in power needed to be reminded that we do outnumber them. We need to say no to what's coming to these agendas. I see other countries all the time taking to the streets to march against their tyrannical leaders. Maybe it's time we do the same. I'm an optimist. I think that we can change this dystopian course if we lose the left-right, red-blue divide and the conquer agenda and focus on the real enemies, because they hate us and they've already waged war on us, the people, and we have to start somewhere. And we have to start while we still have these platforms and we still have a chance.
Yeah.
And that's just the way I see it. And thank you again, Charlie, Ricky, for having me on. I really appreciate it so much.
Hey, thanks for being with us. Yeah,
Thanks for
one
coming on.
one thing we were talking about with I said the Roger, and I'd like to get everybody else's opinion on is after the. I mean, do you guys? Because this is a discussion that has continued over and over again on this podcast, where sometimes we have people on and they believe that Trump is different, and then that he has done some things that no other president has done before, like he bring up the vaccine thing. I mean, he has brought up the military industrial complex before. He has kind of F you to big pharma with the whole hydroxychloroquine thing. And then in other cases, like things that Tim said, has showed you like kind of shades of like maybe being just like the other guys, so I mean, where do you guys stand? I mean, do you have that same internal dilemma?
Well, I'll tell you what I would like to ask Roger, man. And by the way to put this together, Ricky. I feel like an asshole coming in late on this one, man. I'm glad I got at least the Bolton question in on him. I would have posed, when your last guest that just went out said something about, well, will they be able to present enough evidence? Well, Roger Stone's mentor wouldn't have cared a fuck about evidence. He would have cared about who the judges were and how we could get to them. And isn't that what I would have liked to ask Roger? Is that really where we're at? Is the integrity of judges or the disintegrity of judges via this election or selection or whatever you want to call it? Forget about differences. At the end of the day, do we have any checks and balances? Do we have an actual judicial system?
Yeah.
Exactly. Or do we have a cartel-run system where you got guys like Roy Cohn, that guy's mentor, going in and obfuscating truths and manipulating verdicts? I mean, and hey, like if you watch those documentaries on Roy Cohn that are out there right now, I mean, he doesn't think that he was not a part of all the major decisions in his part of the 20th century. So think about that and the levels of corruption. Man, great job again, Ricky. I'm kind of blown away. When I turned on the thing and I saw it, I was just like, damn. What am
I tried.
Yeah, but you know what to
I'd
do.
like to answer your question, Ricky.
I would have really, you can give me props if I can get him and Greg Palast on at the same time. Then I will definitely get some props. But sorry, yeah. Answer my question, please.
So I have this conversation with myself every day, and when I learned that the CDC pays its employees to watch soap operas, and having grown up watching soap operas until I threw my TV out, I think I also play with the idea that, well, this is divide and conquer. We're more divided than ever. They can identify with every tweet, with every video, who the deplorables, the dissidents are. And maybe he played himself, and he's a way better actor than fucking Kamala, who's so fake. But I think I get on Twitter every day, like, do you really think this guy's different? We're hopeful people, and we're good people, and we stand for truth. So of course we want to grasp to that notion. And he is different in that he's not a politician, but he's an actor. And if he did all this good or whatever good, well, it's just going to get all it's all going to get reversed as soon as Joey is in office. So I mean, I grapple with that every day.
That's the boilerplate old school GOP agenda. Tax cuts for billionaires, bloated military spending, started coups in Venezuela, Honduras, Nicaragua, starting to destabilize Guatemala, ramped up the military presence in Africa. It's off the chain now. Has been Israel's bitch from day one. Yes, man, he says a lot of fucking entertaining and wild and great things, but his agenda and what has taken place, to say the least, man, the destruction of a free press under the Trump administration through Bill Barr and through Jeff Sessions, like this is just a run of the mill predator class wish list. And I love my friends that have been Trump supporters from day one. I do, man. And everybody wants to hope. Everybody wants to have hope. But I don't see anything tangible coming out of the Trump administration that hasn't been regular old predator class agenda, because the Democrats have voted with him like 88% of the time.
Okay, so this is a discussion that I've had with a lot of people. I agree with you, and if anybody's listened to my show, I mean, throughout the years, I've had people on from all different left, right, or whatever. I always say I'm a political atheist. It's all theater to me. It doesn't mean anything. I feel like this is the one time, and you guys, please feel free to disagree with me or expand on this. This is the one time it's slightly different, because what I've been telling people, and what I've been telling myself also, is that, okay, we can argue about, his foreign policy. We can argue about taxes. We can argue about all this stuff. But right now, I just want my fucking life back. I want my kids to have their life back. I want to stop wearing fucking masks. I want my kids to be able to go to school again and be brainwashed. That's kind of a joke, but I want them to be able to see their friends again and not have all this awkwardness of when you run into somebody, you don't know if they're smiling, you don't know if they feel uncomfortable that you're too close. All this stuff that's going to have some serious psychological negative effects on us, and it has. It's almost like, I almost feel like, okay, let's not vote in the guy who 100% is going to continue this way longer than it has to. And maybe if Trump goes in, if he's the president, maybe he doesn't roll things back. Maybe, but he at least has showed more evidence of it than obviously Joe Biden, who's just a puppet. And so to me, it's like, foreign policy, all these things. I mean, I got into alternative media because of hating the Bushes so much, to be honest. I mean, it was the Iraq war, the Afghanistan war. I mean, all these things, September 11th, I've been a fan of Jason Bermas forever because of this. I mean, it's awesome that we're friends now, because I've been, he red pilled a bunch of people, including myself, his documentary. And obviously Richard Grove being, a 9/11 whistleblower. And so, these, without a doubt, like, I think the majority of us, 99% of the time, would be like, you know what, it's all theater. But it's like, right now, it's like, it's so deep into our personal lives, and I hate the way things are so much right now, that I'm maybe, like like you guys said, like, maybe it's just me being hopeful that if I support this guy compared to that guy, maybe I'll be a little closer to things not being as shitty.
I feel the same way. Like, it's a choice between sprinting into a dystopian future with Biden and casually jogging towards a dystopian future with Donald Trump. You're still going to probably get there in the end. These maniacs have all the power. We know what they want. They're not shy about sharing it. We know where they want to go. It's more for them, less for us. It's feudal society where they're the kings, we're the serfs. We get all that. But I'm like you, Ricky, in that I don't fall for the left-right paradigm nonsense. But when one candidate is telling you, my intention is to take us head first into the Great Reset, and the other candidate is saying, maybe, maybe not, I'm going to lean towards the guy saying maybe, maybe not. Doesn't mean I trust him. It doesn't mean I believe that he's a savior. Doesn't mean I actually even believe it. I just know that if one guy is saying that my agenda is this, and the other guy is saying that my agenda might be that, but it might be something else, and we have two choices and two choices only in this shitty system that we've developed, it's like, I'll lean for that guy, but I'm not going to go out and, like, advocate for him, really. I'm still very suspicious of these guys, and rightfully so. But the Biden administration just seems like a sprint into insanity, and I'm not feeling that right now.
So what's a solution? Because I'm sick of the thing. Hi guys, thanks for allowing me to join. Really appreciate it. I'm Kingsley from Float.app, new social media, censorship resistance. We have cryptocurrency built in, and I was actually part of the 2008 and 2012. We helped take over the state of Nevada for Ron Paul. And then I learned how just corrupt on the local level that, politics can be. Got into cryptocurrency after really understanding what it can do and ending the Fed. Big part of Ron Paul's mission was ending the Fed. And so now, since then, I've been kind of just a crypto entrepreneur, building products and services in the space. So that's what I've kind of decided to dedicate my life to, because not only can you make a lot of money with cryptocurrency, but also because I feel like it's the fastest and easiest way to a more peaceful and prosperous, opt out of the financial system, for the world. So what are some other solutions that you guys can think of as far as getting out of this two-party, paradigm that we're living in right now?
Yeah, it's
not even a two-party paradigm, is it? Right? It's just it's command control right now.
One party, yeah, right.
Yeah, like one party. Yeah, can we get it to two?
Well, I'm just saying, even any way you look at it, just like Mr. Robinson put it out there, he's right. Charlie's right. Are we jogging or are we sprinting? Okay, and people need to realize, as of right now, we are on the ground with a fucking boot on our throat. Okay, so pushing back is over. You see what's happening in New York. You're seeing what's happening nationwide. Joe Biden ran on a stance of mandatory masks if and when you go back to work. I would go with what Scott Atlas said. And I'm not trying to make this into MAGA, but just like Charlie said, it was very cut and dry. Trump was running on no lockdowns. Biden was running on lockdowns. Fauci's telling you right now you're wearing masks and you're social distancing after a vaccine. Scott Atlas is telling you the vaccine isn't mandatory. Don't get me wrong. None of Operation Warp Speed is great. But the bottom line is it is no. And it's going to be no with at least your presence and force. It's not going to be no from a fucking keyboard. Okay? Yeah. I'm going to say it again. What Idaho did was the only semblance of people getting together and storming their local governments that even worked for a second. And right now, if we don't start organizing that, we are all going to meet the same fate, period.
I agree.
I agree.
There is nothing else left, guys. It's storming your local government with a bunch of people, and they've already set up demonization via that whole Whitmer plot that was, riled up by an FBI informant. I'm not saying we need to kidnap anybody. I'm not calling for anybody's physical harm. I want to make that abundantly clear. What I am saying is the halls of Congress and Senate in each state are fucking ours. They're ours. Okay? So if you want your life back, you better get a couple hundred or a couple thousand people and start storming these motherfuckers. And that's my next step. I'll guarantee I'm going to try to put something together like that here in Iowa prior to the inauguration of whoever is next if they continue with this.
I am 100% there with you. I mean, I think that's the answer. We need to get up off our asses and show up at the capital of every local, state, and federal building and say, get the fuck out or make some changes. I think that's the only thing that is going to possibly do anything. And when it comes to what you said about Trump, Charlie, you're right. One of the biggest things for me is the media fucking hates him so much and the left hates him so much and everybody just hates him. And that's a huge flag for me saying, okay, if they hate this guy so much and they're part of this agenda, what is Trump really trying to do here? So that's the one reason that I am, so on the fence with this guy and what's happening right now with this election.
Many don't know why they hate him, and he's the villain. So I wouldn't look into too much of that because again, they pay CDC to watch.
But isn't he part of the WWF Hall of Fame?
He's in the WWF.
The corporation that put two teams against each other. So I feel like he's an actor.
And if you take a look at this, I mean, I think with him getting elected, it slowed things down, but it slowed it down temporarily. And then they just called an audible and they sped things up drastically. Exactly. So I think they had this event 201 and all the coronavirus stuff in their back pocket that maybe they were supposed to release years down the road. And then all of a sudden, the Russiagate didn't work, and Russian hookers peeing on him didn't work, and the Ukraine gate didn't work, and the impeaching didn't work, and so they had to go for plan Z or something and throw a Hail Mary, and it's we're going to lock down the whole world and let's just accelerate our timeline. So unfortunately, it almost seems like with him getting in there, the sprint just intensified. But I don't think he was necessarily a willing participant in it. I just think that they used him. And I think that he was too cocky in there, thinking that he knew everything. And the fact that Roger just told us that they weren't prepared for this fraction magic and they weren't anticipating this. You know, and honestly, if you're too dumb and you were not anticipating this, you don't deserve to be president, because everybody knew this. Everybody knew that this was going to be going on if you're paying attention.
I don't buy that for a second.
Nah, me neither. They used the Rona as a cover, and we knew it back in April, May, when we knew that this was less fatal than the flu, and yet they were anticipating their CARES money 6 months into the future. How is that?
It's the biggest psychological warfare operation we've seen, really.
Well, see what's happening, guys. Like, I don't know if any of you actually watched the whole Event 201 thing. It's like a 3-hour, love fest of tyranny. But in that, the exact playbook that we're hearing right now, is coming out, like lockdown upon lockdown. They're gonna just go harder. The boot, as Bermas said, the boot is down on our throat. They're gonna keep on, stomping on your face right now, because they have the plan. Go and watch it, and you'll know exactly what these bastards are up to. They're here in Manitoba. We had a masks, hugs over masks, and basically what the government did is they said that everybody that was on there, on the Facebook event or whatever, they're gonna get fined, even though if you didn't showed up. And they called them a bunch of morons and idiots. The premier did. Right on global on television, and they have these playbook, Event 201 playbook, and they actually talked about in the playbook to have internet shutdowns, to actually shut down the internet. But then they were afraid that there would be a revolution if they tried to pull something off like that. You got to remember, the 65 million deaths that they promoted came out of that Event 201. They had this, laid out. And, me and Tim, we focused on, the financial system, but now we have medical, tyrannical, totalitarian takeover all across the world. In my home country, Norway, actually in Denmark right now, they are at Parliament Hill, Bermas, they're doing what you're doing. And they're actually, mandating government to cut off the law that is actually forcibly inoculate you in Denmark. But, they're not leaving until they actually get the government to stop. And I think a lot of people need to go out there, especially what I'm seeing here currently in, Kanadistan, the communist hellhole that it's turning into. People need to be out there and need to, counteract the craziness that they're doing right now with the propaganda.
Yeah, you see people in. Go ahead.
Real quick, I just want to underscore and like co-sign Bermas's "Let's Go Flood" the local government. December 10th is Human Rights Day, so if you can put that together by December 10th, that might be a great way to kick that off. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I mean, you see other countries all the time getting out in the streets and protesting the tyrannical government, millions of them, and you never see Americans do it. You see a little bit of it recently because of all the fuckery going on, but yeah, we definitely need to take to our capitals.
People were protesting the lockdown. I mean, I just think, it wasn't, I don't think it was huge, but a huge amount of people, but it seemed much less because those videos were being stripped from the internet and you couldn't see them. It was completely okay to watch police stations burn, but you couldn't see the people getting upset about the lockdown. And I think it's some of that, and a lot of this is all a well thought out plan, because if there's a lot of people, when you talk to them, regardless where they are politically, you just start asking, like, do you like the way things are? Does any of this make sense, that you have to wear a mask to your dinner table, but then once you're at the table, you have to take it off? In Massachusetts, where I live, now you have to wear one in public, even if you're by yourself, even if you're, even if you're in the middle of the woods hiking, you have to wear one. I mean, how does this make any sense? We're in a dictatorship. We just don't know it. I mean, we're North Korea. The same way, if you get somebody in North Korea, they don't know that they've been tricked into believing that they have some rights and they're not ruled by a monarchy. That's kind of what's going on here. It's like people, and like Jason's been saying, like the government, even if you believe in the system, which I don't, and I don't have any faith in it, because it's all corrupt and it's just a rigged game. But even if you believe in the system, it's supposed to be government for the people, by the people. Well, if I don't know any people who are enjoying the way things are, why the fuck are we letting the government continually cause all this, this nonsense? It's like, we should be upset, because it's like, if they're not doing anything we want and anything we're enjoying or anything for us, everything's against us, then who the fuck are they working for?
Yeah, and there's no going back to normal either.
I think there's only a small group of people, like that Margaret Mead quote,
that there's too much apathy. And it's like now I informally interview people, and they're like, yeah, we know, well, we're just doing your job. So everybody's just going to do their job to usher in communism and going to be a obedient Nazi. And it's not going to it's only be a small group of people compared to the masses that are willing to storm whatever. I'll storm whatever. Because people are just drinking the Kool-Aid, or they're apathetic. They're not willing. And I think I want to just say, to your point earlier, because of people who've been in vaccine safety, I mean, we witnessed 200,000 people get mass vaccinated in Samoa last year. It happened 30 days. So because of vaccine safety and because of the Rona regime, now they're including people who are not even willing to entertain the possibility of electoral fraud, that we see this is waking people up. I mean, we know that they're lying. That the fact that you're a Democrat and you're not even willing to entertain the possibility and just say, you're entitled to your opinion. No, mofo, this is not an opinion. I'm looking at lawsuits. I'm looking at affidavits. I'm looking at whistleblowers. You cannot deny the possibility of fuckery on a grand scale when we knew that they used the Rona as a regime. So anyway, I'm down to do whatever, but I don't think, looking at my brothers and sisters in China fucking Fornia, San Francisco, that any of these people are going to do anything. They are just drinking the Kool-Aid, or they don't care enough.
It seems like they're moving a little bit too fast and making a lot of mistakes, which is waking up people. And if they keep trying so hard to move these agendas along, more people are going to wake up and stop believing in this fuckery that's going on, which I think that's what's happening. They're just trying too hard, going too fast, and they're fucking up.
But I feel like that's at times, but then when you see things like the Epstein story, it's something that a lot of us have been talking about, child trafficking, the elite, all being caught up in all this. We've been talking about this forever. And then when it finally goes public, and mainstream media is talking about it, and Jeffrey Epstein becomes a household name, you're like, oh, look, people are finally going to wake up to the fact that this shit's going on and stop calling people who are saying things that just are too crazy for you to believe a conspiracy theorist. But then what ends up happening is the next time you propose a new thing, they'll be like, oh, that's a conspiracy. Listen, motherfucker, you just said that about the Jeffrey Epstein thing and I end up being right. So how about you listen to me? And just because it's a little too crazy to believe, don't just completely dismiss it. Because unfortunately, some of the darkest, craziest things that a normie, for lack of a better term, would completely dismiss, in just this year alone, a lot of that stuff has turned out to be true.
Well, one of the things
I think it's too late to wake a bunch of people up. I think if they're not awoken already, it's not going to happen. And the political system, no matter what happens in the way, you either got the left freaking out and destroying everybody as king, or you've got Biden doing what you guys said he was going to do, like fast paced into this tyranny. Either way, that's kind of a mess. I like the only thing to do now is, what are we going to do? All the people that don't want to take the jab, what's going to happen to us? Are you just not going to be able to go to concerts and flights and all that? Is it going to be some superficial bullshit that we don't really care about anyways? Or are they going to start coming after you? I mean, or us? I feel like that's where we're at.
Going to come after us. What I'm saying is, it's one thing to be awake. It's another thing to be willing to be on the front lines. People don't want to lose whatever they have left, or they're not willing. That's what I think. There are people waking up. I'm not discounting that at all.
At what point do we hold a conference to organize militias peacefully?
Now.
Yeah, now's the time before they take this any further.
Yeah, that's what I think so too. Especially, I mean, if Biden comes in office, I mean, we're talking about, maybe you guys already discussed it. Maybe I missed it, but just his top guy on his transition team coming after free speech, hardcore, talking about hate speech crimes. I mean, when you get into that territory,
free speech.
Yeah, I think we all know what it means here. So, it's just like what these commies are doing here. It's a communist takeover. And I joined the military after 9/11 because I was brainwashed thinking that I was doing the right thing. And, I took an oath. I don't take that oath seriously anymore, but I feel like, I'm a good guy that was trying to stand up for the right things. And I feel like now I'm, it's foreign enemies, foreign and domestic. And here we are with this like communist takeover that's been, incrementally, they've been taking over for just decades. I mean, I guess since like even the early, forever really. But it's like, at what point do we start, we know people, I know good people that have a lot of military training, even police officers that want to do the right thing. And so at what point do we start really organizing? And this is, at this point, it's getting to the point where it's been like this for a while, but for defense purposes. Again, like my father, he's been in prison for 27 years for a nonviolent crime from 1993 for a small amount of cocaine. He's still in prison. He got a 60-year sentence. At what point is like enough? And there's so many people like that in that same situation. Now they're going to start throwing people in jail for saying the wrong thing. I'm just, I'm so sick of it, and I'm ready. I don't want to fight, but I do want to stand up, and I'm willing to defend, family and community. So
I think Jason Bermas was referring to Scott Atlas's tweet, I think from yesterday.
Yeah.
He actually says, rise up. It's up to you to what you're going to accept. This is a guy that Trump brought in on the FDA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let me say this. Number one, just talking about militias in 2020 is going to be interpreted as terroristic actions. I hate to say it, but that's 100%. You can put that to the bank. So that's over. I hate to tell you that, but there is no vast amount of organizing militias through social media or any type of platform like that, because we have a country right now where they are promoting Andrew Capo Cuomo as America's governor, and he is currently trying to not just sue the NRA, but dissolve the NRA through that lawsuit in New York. And it's basically almost impossible in the first place, pre-COVID 1984, outside of being a law enforcement officer or former military guy, and having really, really good people back you up to actually get a pistol permit in New York in the first place. And the vast majority of Americans have now become so docile and afraid of the new domestic terror threat, which is number one, where I don't think that's viable. I think that, again, peacefully resisting, mixing civil rights with that spirit of 1776 and storming those facilities of government are really our only options at this point. And when we talk about this being about a virus, what I do, and I try to do, and I've been, doing this week a lot, is putting it in their own words. When you've got a guy now, Tony Fauci, who once told you a mask didn't work, and in the beginning of this, remember, it was only an N95 mask that was going to stop a virus anyway, now telling you mandatory masks, doesn't matter what they are, post-COVID vaccine, even if 90% take it, these are his words yesterday, and social distancing. What is this really about? When you have Klaus Schwab of the Great Reset coming out and saying at the end of the fourth industrial revolution, this is about merging your physical, your technological, and your digital and your biological entity together. Your identity is all one. So one of the things I featured, I know Richard Andrew Grove was in the chat talking about this as well, as how Biden has been a part of this for many years. His mind may not be there now, but he's spoken on automation. He's spoken on the hollowing out of the middle class. He's spoken on basically this new world order that is being put into place through autocracy and people like Schwab and the World Economic Forum. So, I would like to get Richard's take on how we expose this to the masses in more than just memes and sound clips. How do we really hammer it home that this never was, but is certainly no longer about a virus?
Well, first off, I think you're right that it is through building a bridge of communication and understanding, because what we're up against is an invisible enemy. You made a movie called Invisible Empire, right? And that talks about this dynamic through time. What do I mean by it's invisible? Meaning that you can't take up military arms against this dynamic. It is the literal link between people's eyes and the screen and the things they believe on it. So how they're controlling people, according to Walter Lippmann in 1921 through public opinion, he said you can't conduct a propaganda campaign until you do censorship. Because if you have dissenting views, no one's going to believe the propaganda. For the past 4 years solid since Trump got elected, from that Google meeting that got leaked where they're all like, what are we going to do? We got to rig the election. They have censored everybody who had a big audience, from Del Bigtree to Alex Jones and everyone in between, they're all getting censored, deplatformed, deep sixing, right? So then you bring it forward to 1928. You got Eddie Bernays. He writes a book called Propaganda that says that people need an invisible government to control their minds, to lead them like dogs on leashes. And there's a whole book on that. So the fact that we've been in this 100 years, that our parents and grandparents grew up in this environment, and we took all this stuff to be like these guys on the news, Ted Koppel, they're telling us the truth. Fox News, whatever your favorite alphabet soup of news is, that is not what you need for education. And that is the same reason that people believe what they see, because they don't know how to distinguish fact from fiction. They don't have that self-education. They've been schooled. They've been indoctrinated. And so the process of waking up and learning to ask questions and find meaningful and substantial and relatable and validatable answers in objective reality is the only thing that breaks that link between the propaganda and their actions. And all those big advertisers on all those big channels that are out there purveying their legacy news, those companies pay millions and millions of dollars to advertise to their audiences. Why? To make small incremental changes in their behavior over time. So unless you understand the dynamics of what is causing people to take these actions, then you can't effectively get at the root cause. And you certainly can't strike at the root cause of this with violence, because that root cause is in all of us and everyone we know. And until we adult up and get some intellectual self-defense, along with our physical self-defense, along with our non-aggression, we won't have freedom, and we won't be able to retain or maintain it over time.
I wish I agreed with you. I used to think that way, but I think it's getting to the point now where they start criminalizing speech, then we're not going to have any tools to basically speak out or help keep communicating. So I think honestly the time now is to organize for defense. And I mean, I don't know if anybody else here has a military background, but I joined, like I said, I joined the military after 9/11. Went through. Are
you familiar with Schaefer Cox?
Yes, I am. And I know a lot of people, they still, it's the same thing over and over.
So you want to be in a communications management unit?
I want to create defensive, whatever you want to call it, defensive forces in our communities. And
then we have
help
to
organize.
Use more words to describe it, I think.
And the other thing is, listen, if you're going to go that route, the first thing that you would have to do to even enable that in 2020 is to get the sheriff's department bare minimum to be by your side. Bare minimum. I mean, if you're going to talk about
run for sheriff, now there's some ideas.
Well, again, that's one of those localized enforcement officers that is a big part of your community and actually an electable, accountable officials. I've talked about this often, that sheriffs are really that last line of defense, but how many of them have risen up against their local mayors or gone against their state or local police? It's minuscule at best. So now is the time. And before we have to raise our guns, we have to raise our voices and feet to these steps. That's what I truly believe, because if you think that even a ragtag of guerrilla soldiers in the United States is going to be any match for a militarized unit, the likes of which we've seen in just police forces, in this country,
drones and robots. It's not the 1930s anymore.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Drones are real. Just because they haven't turned on us yet doesn't mean they won't be. And the next thing about this is, who are the targets? I mean, let's be honest. If you take out Joe Biden, nothing changes. You take out Kamala Harris, nothing changes. You take out any of those puppets, nothing changes. It goes back to the discussion: are we jogging or sprinting towards this dystopia? The only way that you're really going to do away with this, and again, I wish I had some more time with Roger Stone, is to inherently get rid of the system that we've erected that's taken away our constitutional republic, aka lobbyism. Roger, the godfather of lobbyism. Lobbyism has to go out the door. The national security state has to go out the door. You have to have checks and balances again. Okay, corporate America can no longer be defined in the manner that a corporation is a human being. So I can be buyer or bear and release a factor 8 medication that gives people live HIV virus, costs people thousands, and I'm not charged as a fucking murderer. I could literally do more time in jail if I stabbed my fucking secretary on the floor, and that would be like less than killing 1,000 people that you just pay a fine on for corporate profits. And that's not just the United States.
Unless you're Joe Scarborough.
Well,
you get a fuck.
You just walk in and all of a sudden your intern has her head bashed in. She fell. Okay, she fell.
And let's not forget that Bayer used to be IG Farben before that, which created the gas that killed the Jews. And then they merged with Monsanto recently. So, that's just a match made in heaven.
$66 billion. I directed the film Vanishing of the Bees, which blows the whistle on Bayer.
But they're getting to the point now where they're cutting our money off. They're cutting our money off. They're cutting our voices off. They're cutting our communications, even talk with people, even reach our audience off. Dan Dix, they're cut his MailChimp account off, his GoFundMe off, his Patreon off. I mean, everything's been cut off. And so it's getting to the point where now they're going to be cutting our travel off, universal basic income. I mean, everything's getting cut off. And then Jason was mentioning New York. My dad, the one thing he hates more than anything about me is my anti-police stance, but he lives in New York. All his friends are cops. He had the people that vouched for his pistol permit were all police, and he's been waiting for like a year to get a pistol permit, and every single person that vouched for him was a cop. And another guy who I know that Kingsley knows him, someone that is actually getting interviewed by James Corbett right now is Howard Lickman of Thick Red Line, and he was going to use my studio to be part of this, but unfortunately he's getting interviewed by Corbett at the exact same time right now. But Howard has put together this Thick Red Line organization where basically he's trying to work with the local sheriffs to say, hey, listen, where is the line that you're not going to cross? And instead of this thin blue line, how about we all stand together as this thick red line? So I could try to get him on next time we do one of these. I did an interview with him recently, and also with Sheriff Richard Mack down at G. Griffin's Red Pill Conference. I think getting both of them on, because Sheriff Richard Mack is one of those rare sheriffs that would actually go out and stand up for the people and stand up for I guess whatever vestige of the Bill of Rights and anything that's left of this country.
Just one real quick thing. One of my best friends who was a Ron Paul supporter with me. I mean, he was one of the guys that we were like there at the state Republican convention, like making sure counting the votes, because the previous in 2008 they basically shut down the convention and turned off the lights and kicked all the Ron Paul people out so that he wouldn't win. So super good guy. I've known him most of my life since high school, and he is a sheriff's deputy. I won't say where. But my idea was basically to help organize something in for defense. He basically is a sheriff's deputy in a small town that has water, natural resources, farmable land. And I was part of the group that we took 200 to 300 Ron Paulers, took over the Clark County Republican Party and took over Ron Paul for the state. So we can do the same thing on a very local level, on the county level. And basically, I mean, infiltrate, counties, cities, wherever. I have one location that will work. And like I said, it's very, it's a good, I think it's a good place. I'm actually going to go visit there this week. So if anybody's interested in that, hit me up, because I like I said, I'm part of a group that has done this before. It'd only take about 100 people. And the idea is that, you do the same thing that we did before. We take over the Republican Party there, and we basically elect the people that we want into office to take over the sheriff's department, the police department, on the local level at least, and then go from there. So it's just an idea, but I think it's a good one.
Yeah, I have one comment before I have to leave, and it goes along the lines with these working with your local levels. My producer and co-host Corey Hughes, he has created a website. We're moving to Colorado this week. There's a lot of fuckery going on in Colorado, especially. The website is savecolorado.org. He's got so much information. He does so much research on the whole COVID psych operation. Please check out that website. And if you want to get involved in your local communities, if you live in Colorado, email us. We have a bunch of ideas that we're tossing around right now, and we're trying to get as many people in that community to come together as well. So again, that website is savecolorado.org. And I agree with you guys. We need to start on a local level. And thank you once again, Ricky, for letting me be on this amazing panel. Everyone else, good night.
All right, thanks for joining us. Yeah, I mean, it's weird, right? Because I mean, this is another one of those dilemmas in the alternative media. It's like you have some people that are just upset and like are ready to take action, and then other people who have zero hope, and then other people who are really. I mean, I'm a big believer of just trying to change minds and hoping I can motivate somebody who has more time than I do to go protest. But yeah, I mean, it does seem like we have to do, like, how far is it going to go before I guess just talking doesn't work anymore, right? I guess that's probably some of the things people are thinking about, right?
Yeah, and it will go that way, right? Like if we are not, having that resistance, it's definitely going to go towards that dystopian future. So, like us having these discussions, and especially here in Canada, we really need, people to stand up. Like we only got a few, alternative medias here, like Dan Dix, and then World Alternative Media with Josh. But like now you're seeing an insane amount. Like they're actually talking about how great, like our local government is talking about how great the Melbourne what they did in COVID, and they're actually looking at, because now they're saying like these morons are out protesting, and it's time to put in actual lockdown. Like we actually shut down all the small businesses. 50% are going to go out of business here. And then, of course, now the small businesses are turning into little commies even, because now they're angry at the big box stores being able to be open. And it's like, oh, we should just not sell any essential goods whatsoever, no non-essential goods. So now stores are starting to, block off and doing what they did in Australia, which was just basically you can't buy anything else but food and and water.
So horrific. It's so horrible. And I'm a big proponent of being in the future and being a visionary, which is why I was in Costa Rica for 6 months before most realized what was happening. And the time is to be one step ahead. I'm actually looking at like Stephen Hassan's mind control. I took a psychology of cults, how to deprogram people, but I think there has to be a lot of initiatives. If it's like Zach and I had talked a while ago about a sticker campaign of telling people where to go to get more information to start getting deprogrammed, but how to galvanize people into action. Because again, my fear is that people will be too scared to actually do anything until it's too late. Like
You have to work with people's initial limitations, right? You can't get someone who is not necessarily inclined to be a soldier or participate in defense into defense. You could probably get them to a protest. You could probably get them to help organize. But what it really, I think that all of this needs to happen at the same time. Because if it doesn't, if it's just, okay, we've got, X amount of people who are storming 3 state capitals, that's going to get swept under the rug. If we've got 100 people who are gathering for defense, that's easy to take apart. But if we've got tens of thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of people that are all participating in various different either actions or training or any sort of overall activism, then you can kind of overwhelm them.
And can we recruit some of the wealthy? They're not billionaires. They're going to be left out in the dust. Or people like Elon Musk that's like, I got dude, because the PCR test is shit.
Not a good billionaire. He's not one of the good guys.
No, I know he's not, but he's tweeting about the PCR test being shit. Dude, because this is a con. That's why. I'm just saying, can we enlist? We need to enlist people and have a myriad different before they lock us in, before they shut down communication via the internet.
Before you can get around. Have you guys heard about the German lawsuit that's going on now that potentially could go and challenge, in Supreme Court in Canada?
And if anybody wants to know more about that, the Valuetainment podcast, they just had one of the attorneys on there. I was actually just looking for that attorney's contact information today because I was trying to get him on my show. I haven't had any luck yet, but if you're out there, if you're listening, come on to Ripple Effect Podcast. Let's talk about the story. But it is a very important story.
Yeah, you can find them on a German website, by the way. I sent already for me and Tim to try to get him.
Oh, really?
I don't know. Yeah, it's actually a German website, so you got to know a little bit of German.
Well, I think I found a Twitter account and it was in German. And I'm like, oh God, I don't think I'm going to find anything English. But he's in German, but he speaks perfect English.
Yeah, he is American. Like American German. He actually was the guy that sued Deutsche Bank. He sued Volkswagen actually won those 2 lawsuits. So, and he says, I'm not stepping out. A lot in Europe, actually, there's a ton of people standing up. There's almost 50,000 doctors and nurses that are part of Doctors United, I believe, over in Europe. So there's a lot of organizations that are actually tackling this left, right, and center now, because in Europe it's becoming extremely totalitarian. Even Sweden are turning into lockdowns right now, by the way. For those of you that we're excited about Sweden having a little bit of resistance, but it looks like they now have been selling out my sister.
We have to flatten the curve. First it was the curve of deaths. Now we have to flatten the curve of cases. What the fuck are we doing? Cases. That's what we're trying to flatten the curve of cases. People
now they're saying that the real scourge on America is rural America, and it's places like North Dakota and South Dakota didn't shut down, or now the big boogeyman.
I almost got kicked out of the gym today for not wearing a mask.
Oh, I've gotten in many political debates with people who come up to me who are liberals who think that I'm not wearing a mask because I'm a Trump supporter. I'm like, I'm not wearing a mask because this is ridiculous. I'm like, we're sharing the same spray nozzle. Yeah,
I was working out and I was it's like I'm drinking, I'm like hydrating myself, and they're yelling at me. It's like, get the hell out of my face.
And I've said this on the show a bunch of times. It's not about safety, it's about compliance, because they don't care if you have a rag over your face. They don't care if you have something that will not prevent the spread of anything, as long as you just have something on your face so they can see that you're compliant. That's all that matters.
Right. If it's go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if it's so bad, if it's so scary, why would we have people in the gym working out, using the same equipment, sweating, doing all this stuff, breathing hard? It's like it's just insanity. It hurts my brain.
Yeah.
Within the last hour, I'm just reading it now, and I'm getting extremely angry since I just moved to Iowa. They have now put a mask mandate throughout the entire state. Now, it may not be as stringent as New York, as they're saying, if you can stay away from 6 feet, or you're only in a place 15 minutes or longer, okay. And there seems to be some loopholes for professional sports. I'm supposed to call my first pro MMA fight this weekend, by the way. We're hoping
nice.
Well, we'll see. I went to the venue and the guy was gleefully happy that they might shut it down. You see, when the bureaucrats are paid to sit in a fucking office and make the same amount of money not to do anything, they're happy to go along with the tyranny, which really pissed me off. But this is what pisses me off even more. The way I got this gig is I went to a place called The Ridge, which is a bar about a mile up the road. No masks, no social distancing, no plexiglass. It was as normal could be. If any of you had walked in there, it could have been 2019, no problem. Well, not anymore. Restaurants, bars, bowling alleys, arcades, pool halls, bingo halls, and indoor playgrounds are now required to close at 10 p.m. and cannot host private gatherings of more than 15 people. Masks must now be worn by staff who have direct contact with customers, and customers must wear masks when they are not seated at their table to eat or drink, something that I was basking in while I've been here the last 6 weeks.
Well, I wasn't ready to storm any capitals, but now that they're shutting down bingo halls, I mean, that's the final straw.
I'm ready to fucking go tomorrow. Did they say
bingo?
We were going to wait till December.
Bingo. That's the code word. It's Operation Bingo.
Organizing tomorrow now.
Operation Bingo.
We got that garbage already. Here they're actually looking at like doing full curfews in between little, counties and so on. So it's getting insane. But what's funny though is like it's the actual medical tyranny. So it's all the doctors and the spokespeople that they were talking about in Event 201 to be used to then persuade the propaganda onto the elected people, so they would buy in, because these are people that have distinctions that we should listen to.
Yeah, if anybody hasn't watched Plandemic, and I'm still running into people who haven't watched the Plandemic documentary, go to Plandemic.
I worked on it.
You did? Oh, awesome. Yeah. Mickey's awesome. I ended up talking to him for like almost 3 hours when he was on my show. Super nice guy. But that documentary for a lot of people will connect some dots, and it'll make a lot more sense to you than what the TV's telling you is going on. To me, it's outrageous that people care more about defending their political party than they care about, possibly losing their rights and freedoms. There's so many people on the left that really are doing this because Trump, in their eyes, didn't take the virus seriously, so they have to keep beating this dead horse that we have to prove to him that he didn't take it seriously and he should have, and all the blood's on his hands and all this stuff. So it's so politically motivated. But something we talked about too that reminded me of Rich, because he talks a lot about this, is, how do we get, how many people are actually going to go out and protest and do something? I think one of the problems is our school systems, because what we do is we reward people who are compliant. Like I keep saying, compliant people who just regurgitate information. They stay in their seat. They don't ask questions. You'll get a good job. You'll get a big house. You'll be happy. Just follow these rules and don't think for yourself. And so I think that's some of the problem too, because I was just interviewed on Deborah Gets Red Pilled, which is a great idea for a podcast. This guy has his mother-in-law who's a lifelong Democrat, and he's a like anarcho-libertarian, and she's his co-host, and he'll have people on like myself, and I think Charlie's been on, and they'll attempt to get through to her, and she's very nice. But one thing that I saw with her and her husband is that even though like the things that we say are making sense, right? Like it's like, okay, this doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. It seems like we're being lied to. She admitted it. She's like, we're just people who follow the rules. We never like to go against the grain and cause trouble. Like if these are the rules, even if things don't make sense, we're just going to do it. The people who stop at the red light, even if it's 2 a.m. and there's nobody on any street anywhere, and you just wait there and you wait there. And even though you're like, this is fucking ridiculous, let me just go. Or, the people who follow the arrows in the store, even if the store's dead. Like there's a lot of those people out there. And so, the problem is, and this goes to issue that many of us have talked about throughout the years, the school systems. We create people who don't think for themselves and don't want to, get in trouble, for a lack of better term, So, Rich, do you think I'm right in regards to that?
I think there's a lot going on that's like the whole environment's muddy with non-facts and high emotionality, and it gets people with blinders on so that they can't see any bigger picture. So I'm always trying to zoom back and say, what does history tell us about these events, and what can we be doing? Right. So what would Miyamoto Musashi or von Clausewitz or Sun Tzu or even Machiavelli, like what are the strategies that you could work on an opponent in these situations where we are outnumbered, and the force that we're up against is an international globalist force and we don't have local accountability. So the people that are in power, if we resist and they change their minds, they'll just be replaced, because it's no longer an American plan, a domestic or foreign policy that's unfolding. What they have is an ages-long plan that finally got to the point where everybody's taken notice of it, right? But Joe Biden took notice of it in 1992 when he wrote the article for the Wall Street Journal, How I Learned to Love the New World Order. It's about bringing in the United Nations, that America is an obsolete idea. And that's why the globalists supported Biden, not just that they could whisper anything and he'll repeat it through a microphone, but they did it because he's a very, very, very reliable long-term asset in their organization. He brags at the CFR. He brags at the World Economic Forum. Jason's done some really good coverage just today, just the reports he's done today, connecting Klaus and Microsoft's Bill Gates and Biden, who are all 20 years later. It's like, here's the things going on. Or Biden, I guess that was just 5 or 6 years ago. But these guys all have long-established business relationships prior to COVID. And I think that's important to take on to your consideration palette of things you can choose from to make a decision in your life about these situations.
I would just like to add that I don't think that we're outnumbered, but I know that we're out organized. So I think that's the most important thing right now, is to organize.
I agree with you. And it goes back to what Miriam said, the Margaret Mead quote, where it, never underestimate the power of a small group of people to make change. In fact, that's all that ever has. But she's talking about their side. She's part of the small group of people that influence billions of people's lives around the world. So we really do. We have to be that other 1 or 2% on the other side of the bell curve, because there are people that are totally corrupt and evil. And again, I've known Jason for 13, 14 years, and he has been consistent in talking about, the first thing he talked about was like the Roman Catholic Church and their pedophile protection network. And I was like, I know, I've been researching too. So like his message about how these people who are the enemy, they attack the youngest and the oldest among us, and they leave us in the middle of that, dealing with both ends of that spectrum, trying to protect our kids, trying to protect our elderly from their plans of eugenics and population control and world domination that are not a conspiracy theory. It's only illiterate people who think that. If you're literate and you know where to look, these have been written down. And I wanted to ask Roger Stone, but I didn't get a chance. He worked with Barry Goldwater. Barry Goldwater wrote a book called With No Apologies. In chapters 32 and 33, ironically enough, he tells you about the New World Order. He tells you about the Trilateral Commission. He tells you about the Council on Foreign Relations beyond reasonable doubt. So here's a guy who was there and he wrote it in his memoirs. And I just wanted to ask Roger, like, what's your interpretation of this invisible government, this supranational entity that no longer lets Americans have their free will distributed among ourselves? It's always an outside influence and agenda that's being carried out.
Well, somebody else who's a big Goldwater fan that maybe I can have her on the next episode is Hillary Clinton. So maybe I'll get her.
There you go.
Does she take calls from herself? Oh wait, what year? This is still 2020. Sorry.
I'm still counting on Hillary Clinton being president soon, so don't discount her yet.
She essentially will be with Kamala Harris.
Yeah. Hey guys, I gotta get going. Pleasure being with you guys. So we'll
Thanks,
talk
John.
soon. Have a good one.
I do too.
Well,
Thank you, gentlemen.
see you, John.
Thanks, sausages out there. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
I wanted
God
to
bless.
add onto your bit earlier there, Ricky. I have a theory that in an increasingly secular society, the same energy that goes into a spirituality or a faith-based belief system has been transferred into political identity. And we have people walking around who have deified politicians, and the like quote unquote progressives that are neoliberal idiots in training wheels, they are emblematic of this, I think, more so than any other voting bloc right now. And it is it's kind of a weird phenomenon to watch people literally make a saint out of a career politician. Like the amount of faith it takes to do that is just
we do it with scientists, doctors, right? So, I mean, this is another thing that's been exposed more than ever. Is like, I mean, look at Dr. Fauci. When he was questioned about the protests, you know, he obviously had a political agenda because he wouldn't admit that could have possibly also spread the virus the same way that he was accusing Trump and the rallies to spread the virus. So we do put these people on this pedestal that we think that, you know, for some reason, because you decide to take this career, that you don't have a political agenda or you don't have opinions or perspectives that could influence the way you do policy or what you're going to say or what you're going to do. I mean, same thing with big tech, like this idea that there's people behind big tech who are designing those algorithms. So even though it's a digital thing, it's all designed and run and engineered by people who have political agendas, personal opinions and perspectives, and all that stuff is going to come into play, and it's going to have some influence on how they, you know, change that search engine or what exactly comes up first or whatnot. So it's we're all human, and we all, I mean, even the people on this call, anybody who's ever been on the show or anybody I've ever contacted or talked to on a podcast, I mean, we all have some personal views, and we do our best to constantly reevaluate where we stand and why we stand there and where our opinions are coming from. But you know, a lot of people don't do that. You know, they pick a team, defend that team, they don't even realize that they're doing it.
And look what we have our scientists working on nowadays. I mean, they're either working on, you know, like bombs or baldness or like boner pills or there's like, they're working on bullshit. They're not actually working on things that actually help humanity.
Boner pills are not bullshit.
Okay, they're not bullshit. but yeah, but in terms of, I don't know, I'm maybe a little bit younger than you, so maybe it doesn't matter.
Jesus.
Yeah, but you know, but my favorite Barry Goldwater quote, and this used to be on the back of my Facebook. This is my favorite. This used to actually be my cover photo. Was extremism in defense of liberty is no vice, and moderation in pursuit of justice is no virtue, which is a Barry Goldwater quote. And Ricky had mentioned, you know, protesting and in terms of protesting and voting, let's also remember that, you know, where we spend our money, where we spend our time, where we spend our attention is some of our most important votes that we have. So if we are getting off of things like Google, if we're canceling our YouTube TV, or if we're canceling our cable subscriptions, or, you know, just anything, and trying to get away and stop trying to feed this beast that is devouring us, I think is one of the most important things that we could possibly do. And I do want to, and I just thought of this because you brought up pandemic. I'll try to see if I can get Dr. Judy Mikovits on one of these, because who is the star of obviously the pandemic documentary. And don't you know, the first person that started interviewing her and has interviewed her 400 times is Ernest Hancock, who
I know Ernest and I talked, and actually Donna and I talked too.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get Judy because I had contact information.
I've got her phone number, and
awesome.
And actually, that's actually what led to Luke Rudowski and I stopped doing videos. Is he censored a video that I did on March 31st with her right before the pandemic came out, and then all of a sudden, pandemic became the biggest story in the world, and he wouldn't allow me to air that interview, and that's what caused me to stop doing videos with We Are Change. Is I put that out there as my line in the sand, like, listen, if you're going to censor me from interviewing Dr. Judy Mikovits, then that's then really I see no more. I might as well go work for CNN or something. So that was kind of why that stopped, because some people were wondering why that ended pretty abruptly, and unfortunately that was the reason. But I want to get back to Richard, because right before we started this call, we were kind of joking around and we were talking about carrier pigeons, and then you had mentioned and I had mentioned something like, isn't like Reuters or Rothschild somehow tied into the carrier pigeons, and you started getting onto a story, and I said it would probably be better for the show. So I don't know if you can kind of go back to the carrier pigeon story you're about to tell.
Only if you guys fact check me on it. I want someone to look it up and make sure.
This isn't Joe Rogan.
I was looking at boner pills, so I don't know if I could still.
Okay. All right. I'm in the midst of writing a multi-volume history of the Rothschilds based on their own archives, that a lot of which are still available and accessible, and through 50 biographies and autobiographies. And during that search, and it was specifically in their online archives, the family archives in English, that in 1828 they partnered up with Reuters. So Reuters was this nascent news company, and then they came in and said, we have something to offer, and they made a partnership in 1828. Prior to that, the Rothschilds had helped the English government. They ran out of funds for Wellington, and then Nathan Rothschild just happened to be sitting on a bunch of gold from the East India Company that purveyed opium around the world and ran a big black market, subjugating like China and stuff. So he took that gold that really wasn't, well, maybe he was part of ownership. I don't have that technicality, but he took gold from the East India Company. He gave it to the British troops. They were able to win. And so the way that the markets tumbled was they got early information, and they used carrier pigeons. And this is pretty well fleshed out through their own documents and through their own archives. Though what I have to say from reading a whole bunch of their stories from the family is everyone's got little differences in their stories depending on who they heard it from in the family. So you really have to read across.
So this wasn't the Napoleonic War. This was after that, or?
Well, the Napoleonic War is where they used where Waterloo was reported back to Rothschild, and he was able to play the market and make a large gain on the market from that early access to information. And some of the family stories point out the carrier pigeon and the encryption and writing it in Hebrew and this sort of network that they had to facilitate information much faster. And then they get to Reuters, and they're involved in that wire service. And then they get into the transatlantic cable around the turn of the century, whole bunch of railroads and mining operations in between. Very interesting family, very interesting history all over the world. Lots of different robber barons connected in there. And but when you guys were talking about carrier pigeons, Tesla also had a very strong affinity for he had an affinity for pigeons.
Sort of Mike Tyson. I read today that there was a carrier pigeon that sold for $1.9 million, but that was fascinating history lesson, because I always heard people say that it was the carrier pigeon for Waterloo, but I guess things down the road get messed up with in translation. But no, thank you for that history.
And this is the first time Mike Tyson and Tesla have been compared, I think.
But not the last.
Yeah, not the last. Oh boy. You never know what's going to happen on these shows.
I'm just going to bring up Reuters for a second, see if I have it.
And then you go to the election, like on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, and it says, for the fact check of the Donald Trump loss is brought to you by Reuters. So,
oh, wait, I got an update for you on this. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
All right. So Reuters is here, Rothschild family, and it's Sir Evelyn de Rothschild is currently on the board of directors, and the Economist Group also has an interest in it. And the Economist Group is also owned by Sir Evelyn de Rothschild and his wife, Lynn Forrester de Rothschild. And the Economist, if you guys don't know them, they're the ones who are predicting a global super world currency around right now. And then in the last election, they said, we don't have a vote in your country, but if we did, it'd be for our friend Hillary Clinton. She's also named in the WikiLeaks. Hillary and Lynn Forrester de Rothschild, they have a long relationship. They sign their emails, hugs and kisses. That's all I have on the Reuters. Back to you, Ricky.
Hey guys, thanks again for having me on. I have to head out, but
yeah. Well, look, we can wind this down, but we you want to let people know where they can get a hold of you, and I guess we'll do the rounds and let everybody else do the same thing. But if you're leaving first, we'll
yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. So again, Kingsley Edwards with joinfloat.com. We're building a social network where, and also marketplace, going after the features of Facebook against big tech, using encrypted technology, blockchain technology, peer-to-peer stuff. It's really cool. We got Tim, I know is streaming there pretty much daily, I think. And we got a bunch of good people on the platform. We got Josh Sigurdson, Ernie Hancock, Sam Tripoli even has an account, although we got to get him posting more. Anyway, we're up and coming. We're just about to raise a shit ton of money. Pardon my French, but I'm really excited about it. And so I want, especially with you guys, like, please, I'm here for you. We're building this, for the truth seekers, to the freedom fighters. And we just, we want it with any suggestions or advice as far as what we can do to help you get your message out. Let us know, and we will, we'll add it to our pipeline and put it up. And now we finally have the money. We just launched last year, but we're going to finally have the money to really build things right and build them fast. And hopefully at least will be one solution out there that won't take you down. So thanks again for having me on.
Yeah. Well, timing's perfect because I think people are finally sick of all the other alternatives or mainstream platforms, and they're looking for alternatives. So
absolutely.
Yeah, for people like yourself. Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Hey, thanks.
See you, Kingsley.
So everybody just looks like sad and depressed and worn down. We're just like, now what? We didn't change anything.
I'm pissed, man. The mask thing is really what's fucking pissing me off. Like, I knew this, like, literally today, Ricky. So I told this story on Mixed Martial Mindset before this. I guess this is the way I'm going to wrap it up.
Were you with John?
Yeah.
When's John even come on one of these?
I've been hammering on him. The problem is he's usually taking his kids to wrestling literally that hour
that same
after.
time.
He really does. Like, sometimes he even leaves the show early. But so today I went to the venue. The fights are at River City Center. Okay. Now I went about 2 weeks ago, I think it was, or no, a month ago, they had fights back to back again. And yes, they made you wear a mask, but when you're sitting down, you weren't. There were drinks, there were food. These were fighters. Things weren't that stringently enforced. I got to see a live sporting event again. I was having a great time. Just to be a part of that, I was psyched for this, right? But when I'm in the venue, and like I said, I'm overhearing this guy gleefully talking about shutting it down and how the governor's going to make an announcement at 6 p.m. Now, the governor hasn't shut it down yet, but Ricky, man, I moved across the country because I don't want a fucking diaper on my face. I don't want a mask. I want to be human again. My niece looked at me about an hour before this up there, and they're upstairs watching the school board. Okay, they're having their meeting, whether or not, and I don't even know yet whether they're going full remote or they're going to remain going 3 days a week. But she looked at me with almost tears in her eyes, the 11-year-old, and goes, "Well, Uncle Jason, if I can't go to school here, then why do we move across the country?" And I'm like, what can I tell her? And I look at her and I want to cry because I don't want this. So, I just want to end it with saying, we can't give in. We're already on the ground. Forget about it. We might have been shot a couple times. I can't tell you how bad it is. The bottom line is the metaphor is over, and we have to take action, and we have to take it directly to the government in the halls of government with masses of people with civil unrest, but not violence. And I really think at this point, that's the only way we're going to get it done.
Yeah, I think a lot more people are ready to listen. And the plan is that they want lockdown till like this time next year. This is as of today. There's a new stories coming out today. Lockdowns till this time next year. All sorts of other things that really don't match up with freedom and liberty and anything to do with the constitutional republic that we all live in. So if we stop listening to non-elected people who are not using science, because when you censor a whole aspect of dissent, that's not science, that's totalitarian despotism, right? So yeah, it is time to step up and communicate with our loved ones, communicate with your friends and family, your people in your community, and start organizing yourself for around the facts of what's going on, and break yourself from the illusion that the magic picture screen is telling you the truth and you don't need to think for yourself. Even though Zuckerberg and Sergey Brin and Larry Page, those guys, the tech overlords, don't want you to think for yourself. It's the only way out, because it was the only way into the trap. Not thinking for ourselves is how we got in here. The assumptions is how they really control people. They assume what Joe Biden won. They says it on the TV. It's, and they acted out accordingly. So assumptions and beliefs. Yeah. And beliefs. Good point, Tim. Beliefs and things that are not true. That's another big one. That's how they control people. Those are the invisible chains that have to be broken. And we need to make our voices heard. We need to make our presence seen. But the people that are sitting in these locally elected places, like, they're not the masterminds of all this. And the people who are the masterminds, they're just raining money into the situation and bribing DAs and all sorts of other stuff that's behind the scenes and not getting reported. So we are up against insurmountable odds, but we need to do our best and bring excellence to it every day, regardless of the odds, because it's what needs to be done. It's what's right. And it's what fuels freedom going into the future. And they're trying to extinguish it right now in a substantial way. Like, they're on full speed ahead. We just need to tap the brakes a little bit, get control over the car.
Yeah, I also want to let people know at home out there who might be listening and they might be getting very discouraged. And when you're looking even us up here, and the guys that I respect, guys like Jason tremendously, and Richard, and just met Steve today, and sure I'll learn more about you in the future, and Ricky, everything you guys have done. But no one is ever a prophet in their own village. So, like, even we talk to people who are closest to us, they might look at us as from when we're 3 years old. It might not necessarily we not have the same gravitas as listening to somebody else. So, it's important to maybe share other people's podcasts, what other people are saying, and just let people know that even, some of us over here who are black belts in this stuff still can't even sometimes convince the people that are absolutely closest to us, and that no one is a prophet in their own village. But until we get this information and are able to, just color jam and show people what is actually going on, they don't know what's going on. And unfortunately, I think the biggest psyop is coronavirus, maybe 9/11 might be the second, but maybe the third biggest psyop could be the whole QAnon movement, because what it did is it took that small minority of people who were the 1 to 3% that were going to do something, and it misdirected them and misguided them into sitting down, doing nothing, trusting the plan. And so when I was out there saying, listen, we need to get into blockchain voting, and they're going to steal it from, I think the whole thing's a game. I don't even bother voting now, but but to think that I think that all that energy was then harnessed, and kind of just, maybe it was, it was still kind of aiming at the system, but it was slightly diverted just the tiniest bit. And that diversion made the shot miss. And all these, hardcore people sat there and did nothing because they thought that they were winning when really they're being chumped the entire time. And so, obviously I'm not going to win some friends with that type of comment, but, I've been saying that ever since day one. And so it's just important to know that we do have some numbers on our side. We just need to make sure that, our energy is directed at the right places, and trying to get decentralized, trying to actually get the ball over the target. And, and the best thing to do is not necessarily win their system, is create a new system. And that's why I got bigger into cryptocurrencies, because I didn't want to win their game. I wanted to create another game. And thank you so much, Ricky, for putting this on. And you guys can find all of John and I put out a lot of episodes. Liberty Advisor Show is for all the media stuff. We've got great guests like Richard Grove is coming up on Friday. We've got actually one of the co-founders of SpaceX on Thursday. Another guy on Thursdays, Russ from the Real Estate Guys show. So we do a lot of financial stuff, trying to break down the left-right paradigm, economics, and blockchain, and then obviously get into some of this conspiracy content. But thank you guys for having me on so much, and you guys are heroes in my eyes. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. And Slow News Day, you want to let people know where they can get your stuff?
Yeah, and Tim, you were speaking my language there, man. That was fantastic. I can be found at slownewsdayshow.com. It's got the full archive of our shows. My tech for the show, Sleepy Josh, just built the website. It's pretty new. We'll be adding additional content and audio only versions of the show as well. I'm on Twitter at Slow News Day Show. And I do 2 shows now on Sunday. That's right. 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And then later on in the afternoon, we go live exclusively on Rockfin which I am a huge fan of that platform and can't say enough nice things about.
Jason's on there too. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're not, you need to get hip to it. You do.
I've talked to what's it, Jamie and a couple other people from there. I just can't find the time to do a extra show. I don't know how Jason does. He literally does like 28 hours of videos in a 24-hour day. I don't know how you put out so much content. It's crazy. Like I literally, it's just watching a video of yours, and then I'll see there's a new one that was like just. I'm like, how do you find time? It's amazing.
Well, this is it. I'm trying to do this full time, and you know what? I wouldn't be able to do it full time without Rockfin because look. Jordan seems like a nice guy. I know Float is on the up and up. In fact, if Float can do some ingenuitive things, such as being able to let creators go live from their phones, I think that's the only thing right now missing from the Rockfin platform. The reason
it doesn't have an Android app either.
Yes,
but that's it's coming.
It's just like, listen, if I could go live from anywhere, it's a game changer for me. It's already a game changer that I can broadcast live where I can't do that on BitChute and Minds and the other big platforms. The other thing that is important about it is I couldn't make this content if I couldn't pay the bills. It wasn't free to move my family across the country. It wasn't free to put them into gymnastics. Anybody who has a family knows this. So instead of relying on advertising or even relying on a group of people to take free content, yes, the free content is there, but they make it into almost a group-based Patreon experience at a flat rate. So it's $9.99. If they sign up through you, they get Slow News Day. They get Jimmy Dore. They get the Convo Couch. And guess what? If you're signed up to the Convo Couch, you get Jason Bermas. The other thing is they're not taking on everybody. It's not just a free-for-all. You got to be approved. So if you are in free thinking media and you're there, great. There's also it's niche. So there could be people in the MMA community, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community, or wrestling community that are also into that. And the thing is, if they watch your stuff paid, your premium content, that also works to make you actual capital. And I am very happy to say that Rockfin is almost, or the Ray token, which is, a subsidiary of Ether. It's an ERC20 token, has gone from when I first was there. Okay, I think it was about 42 cents. Now, pre-COVID 1984, it hit a max of 72 cents. Right now, it is higher, hovering in the 90 cent to $1.07 range. That's huge. Without Rockfin, I would not have been able to travel the country and look at all these places. So again, that's how I'm finding the time, Ricky. And just so everybody knows, go make the free account now because I am live Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. and I leave that content free for 24 hours or more. That way I don't feel guilty. And then on top of that, if it's a long broadcast or there's something I think I can make YouTube appropriate, I put that on YouTube too. But what's great about it, Ricky, is I can say whatever the fuck I want. And every once in a while, I start saying something on YouTube that is the truth about COVID 1984. And I'm like, am I going to get pulled for that? Am I even going to get an email? I can't get a review on a thumbnail of Justin Trudeau in blackface with a fake dick. Okay, so I don't know whether I'm getting a review on my channel or not. So,
and it was Trudeau's picture. It's a legit picture. It's not made up.
it's not, yeah, and it's not the only one. The guy dressed like fucking Aladdin. I mean, what planet are we on where that's what they pick for the censorship of Jason Bermas and then won't address it when I throw it in their face how ridiculous it is?
They dinged me for Collateral Murder's 10-year anniversary.
What?
Yeah. I got a copyright claim on one of the most heavily censored and suppressed videos on YouTube.
So
yeah,
man.
Yeah. And then they roll my view counts backwards. That's always fun. They yank videos. Never once have I gotten an email when they've taken down a video.
Yeah. So again, Rockfin's not only not, technology is about what? Either empowerment or enslavement. You keep going to platforms like YouTube, and yes, they get a great, a great number of people because they're the number 2 search engine in the world, number 1 video platform. But they are using what? The tools of enslavement through censorship. And on the flip side of that, Rockfin is putting me on the front page and fucking emailing my content out, empowering my voice. So Rockfin, and Rockfin. Ricky, Rockfin.
I know. No,
Hey, I subscribe to the
Ricky
Rockfin,
Rockfin,
and I'm gonna host on there. It looks like a sweet platform. And if you hadn't said it so many times so consistently, Jason, I probably would have let it be like, oh,
well, I
Rockfin.
wasn't on board until the last time you said Rockfin. Then I was.
It's
Then you
the
had 'em.
17th Rockfin that usually gets them.
Did I
Yeah.
mention that Rockfin is an upcoming platform? And again, they're not beholden to whether or not you're going to watch a fucking thing about the latest Sony earbuds. That's what's cool about it, man. And I'm telling you right now, their business model is convincing. It's involving real money. And Martin Florini, who is the founder of that, is the guy behind Flow Sports. And anybody who's into underground sports and wrestling knows that Flow Sports was one of the only underground sports networks to become successful financially. So it's got that going for it too. So Rockfin, Ricky Rockfin.
Yeah, well, just let people know where they can find your stuff. YouTube, and what's the other platform?
It's
Rockfin.
Yeah, I love the last 5 minutes of silliness that happens on here. It's almost like we're fatigued. Well, not Jason. I mean, he seems like he's took a handful of dick pills and
Well, he's not on Eastern time anymore.
He's just
now, so he's...
Listen, guys, the funny thing is the only reason I was going to skip today is because I got like 1 hour of sleep. I woke up, I did my whole thing, and I was like, literally, I got everything done. Like I said, I went to the arena, and I haven't had McDonald's since I've gotten here because I'm in a city area and I don't have to eat disgusting.
and
But
you
for
lift yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, but for some reason, I'm exhausted. I'm not going to do the Union of the Unwanted tonight. I'm going to go get some fucking McDonald's. I still got a fucking leftover Big Mac right here. Didn't even eat it.
Ah, come on.
And I figured that I was going to just go totally comatose and go to bed. And then as I'm sitting here eating my fish fillet, I'm going, oh, let's see who's here. And then Roger Stone was there. And I'm like, fuck this fillet of fish. And I got out here as quick as I could to at least get a question or two. So, man,
sponsor.
Did Tim Dillon steal the fillet of fish while you were waiting?
Oh, it's buy one get one for $1, so it's almost like the two for $5. So props to Tim Dillon for the fillet of fish over on the Rogan election special.
That was awesome.
Maybe McDonald's is the secret, because I mean Donald Trump eats McDonald's. He has tons of energy for 80
It's named after him. That's why he eats it. He thinks it's named after him.
It's the best.
Richard, I gotta get your contact information. I gotta get you on the show sometime.
You guys do need to hook up.
How did you? Oh, Tim got it from Ernie. Go to
or you guys could just go in the chat too. That.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to give him. I'll give you 2 websites, and the first one I'm going to give you has a place where you can get on my schedule, Steve. So you can just jump on there. Getautonomy.info/19 skills. Download the PDF, and then 2 emails from that PDF. I'll offer you a meeting, and you can hop on my schedule. And it's a useful PDF. A lot of people need those skills, but that's not what I teach. That's like 2 slides out of my course that we made a little PDF out of. And my other website right now, that's a everybody website. You guys are all going to be featured there if you're not already. grandtheftworld.com. And we do a live podcast every week, Sunday night, 9 p.m. You guys are welcome to hang out on that too. It's run as a Zoom call, kind of like this. And we cover whatever news has been piped in through the RSS feeds to Grand Theft World during that week. So there's a lot of Bermas, Temple, Luke Radowski. There's some Ricky now and then. There's some Corbett pretty regularly, these sort of things. It's 35 to 40 freedom-related media hosts that we're conglomerating there. And anyone who wants to can use it as their website or a showcase for their offers. So if you don't have your own personal media platform, you can get an editor account, post to your heart's content, consider it partly yours. At least that part can be yours.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys. I really appreciate you guys being on. I'll send you the links to the audio and video and all that stuff, and I'm hopefully sometime, if not tonight, tomorrow morning. And because I'm sure my kids are like, we need to watch Monday Night Raw. Dad, hurry up. And,
Awesome.
So, but yeah, I'll get you guys all that stuff. And if anybody did record it, obviously, like I always tell you guys, it's open source. That's kind of my problem with Rockfin is that I care so much about, and I've had this discussion with Rich a bunch of times. I want to put this stuff out there, and I want it to be easy for people to get access to. And I love that whole James Corbett open source idea of like, steal my stuff, take it, put it anywhere, just get the information out there. That putting anything behind a paywall just seems, against that a little bit. But like you said, you have to pay the bills, and if you want to do it full time, it's like.
And Ricky, I offer it all for free within 24 hours. There's never a time that any of my content is not for free at some point on that platform. So right now I have
listening. If you have an account, so if it's somebody, and I'm asking this for myself and probably people listening, if you create a Rockfin account and you can create one even if you're not paying for it, and
you have to. That's the thing. You can't just go there. That's why you have to create the account. And that's the other thing that's really cool about this is that I know who's interested in my content. I get all their emails. It's the most transparent platform I've ever seen. So in other words, I'm telling everybody what I'm putting out there. Okay. If you tune in, just like you were to listen to Alex Jones on a Monday, you get to get it and the replay the whole day. And it's not until the next day that I would put it behind an archived paywall for like a prisonplanet.tv subscriber. Now, the other thing is I'm asking for a flat fee, and that if you're not even giving to me, you're giving to somebody else. It's helping the platform grow, again, based around not advertising. So I understand your hesitance, but what I do is also a lot of reposting there. So let's say that I triple stream, which I do, to YouTube, Twitter, and Rockfin. That Rockfin content may be under a premium paywall, but I promise you'll be able to find it either on Twitter or YouTube free. There is no time, and I want to repeat this, that my content at one point is not free for at least 24 hours. So I guess that's one way to justify it. And the other thing is, if you've got cool people that are willing to just donate anyway on that $10 monthly basis and don't care if it's all behind a premium paywall, guess what? You can just leave it all free. There is no thing where you become a creator and they say, hey, you got to make premium content. So
to underscore that, the other show that I co-host, the Free Assange Vigil, has a Rockfin account, and all of it is free. And that's because it's, the nature of the show. We're not trying to make money off of it. That's not what we do. So we have an agreement with Rockfin that channel never has any premium content. So it's possible, definitely possible. And you still get a, tiny little amount of Ray tokens every day for having an account on the platform and being part of Rockfin.
Yeah, and talking to people who work for the company, they all seem like they're right on board with, people having the right to say what they want and having that type of having no censorship, basically. So, which is exactly what we're all looking for. And I think a lot of listeners and of all our shows are also looking for that. So it's always good to be able to support companies like that. Like Tim said, or I think Tim said it, you using your money to, is one way of protesting. Pay for the services and really support the people you like. And so go out there. If you have money, go spend it on some of us.
Vote with your dollars.
Yes, exactly. Vote with your dollars.
Like I bought a sweatshirt from you. I bought a hat from Luke. I'm going to get something from Bermas. I haven't been to his store yet, but he's got a store, don't you, Jason?
Yeah. I do, but you know what? That's one of those things that if I'm not really working on it, I don't pump out that much. And the thing is, I'm a graphic designer too. I should be doing that more, but I'm addicted to the content, man.
Let's get you a couple apprentices so you can focus on what you need to do, but still facilitate these other activities that might help you out.
Well, hey, we're building, baby. We're trying. Let's get through this COVID 1984 election nightmare and see what it looks like on the other side of February, and we'll really kick it into high gear then.
Right on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, thanks, guys. We'll all keep in touch. Once I have the links and everything, I'll send it to you. Feel free to post it, upload it anywhere you want, and I'm sure we will all talk again soon.
Thanks, Ricky.
Thank you, Ricky.
Have a great night, guys. Take care.
Take care, y'all.
Rich.